So this is going to be Sinead O'Connor part 2. I do believe there's going to be a 3 and 4 because I think, and I need to stay consistent with it because that's the way I can actually pull her through. But I want to do it, as you know, I find it very easy. Certain spirits come through to me very easy without even me trying to tune in. Sinead especially did when she passed. I'd go ice cold when her name, like I would think that, okay, I'm going to channel Sinead, or suddenly she'll come to me and I go ice cold and I get the shivers. That's eased a lot now. So because I did her astrology and I did her human design, we went through that in part 1, so do check that out. There's a couple bits left here and I do want to go into some stuff as well. So if you haven't seen part 1, please do check it out. You should find it interesting because I know that a lot of people don't necessarily like the astrology part, but it's interesting how, and I'm not, I guess now that I've become a bit more fully focused clients with on the spirituality side and channeling, I can see it, but I think there's still things there that need to be told in truth. So without me trying to go on too much of a tangent, a lot of channelers will say this is your past life and you chose to come here to learn and live that past life. So, just another thing as well. Let me continue on this. I can just feel people like, oh, she's always scatterguns. Yes, but I mean, if you choose to come for a lesson, but I don't necessarily think that you're always going to choose to come experience maybe that lesson in the depth of it. Like, for example, rape victims or Jack the Ripper victims, let's say. And I brought that up for a reason as well. Would you have chosen to come to that extent? Like, and apparently it's a choice. It's not like, oh, it's a karmic cycle, so you will be reincarnated in this to learn that lesson that you did in your past. It's a choice. So I think there's some things there that need visiting. And you need to see what best sits with you in terms of who you trust, in terms of your channeling. And I do believe, don't fall for what the largest audience is, and don't think there's a small, I know that it's very difficult when you see a very small audience of subscribers that you might feel like, they're not good. But you really need to see who speaks to you. I mean, for example, let's take Eugenia Cooney. Like, that is just not millions of subscribers. Or Ruby, who was actually indirectly abusing her children. I don't know how people don't log on to stuff anyway. So you really need to see what speaks to you, and also use your discernment, and your energy and frequency will pull you into those channels. It's very difficult with the algorithm to break through. So a lot of people might not see the content. I can see from the views, you know, a lot of people don't necessarily see the content. So where am I going with this? Yeah, in terms of reincarnation, so we need to look into that. But the astrology and human design, I feel really does make sense in terms of what comes up. And so I've got a couple more slides on what I've done there. What we did learn in the first part, roughly, is a bit of her past life, that she was suppressed, and obviously her numerology, and music would lift Sinead up and encourage her to have that voice. And it was also an escape for her, an escape from, like, when she was able to just vocalize anything or connect with music, I felt like she really connected with the person that was singing in certain instances. Like she'd feel a connection with certain, not all the music, this is new what I'm telling you, it's not in part one, not all the music, some of it, she would feel like a connection with that person. And so it was certain music that spoke to her, she'd suddenly feel actually this person's like, I don't know, like my father, or, you know, this is a person, a father that I've never met. We're so connected in some way, or should go into sort of like, I want this person to be like my boyfriend or something like that. But I think that is also due to two elements. Obviously the music speaking to her soul and feeling the depth of the music and the energy that the person was putting into it beyond what the words and the depth meant, actually feeling into that. And I could be wrong, but this is what I'm getting through, coming through, and I believe in what I'm actually channeling. I just received a call that I really needed to take, so paused, and I think that part might have stopped, and so I'll just connect it anyway. What was I saying? So about her voice and really connecting to the energy, and in part one I actually discussed how psychic she was, but I'm wondering if anyone's read her memoir, and somehow I feel like I would love to read it, but I think I need to channel a bit before I read it, because I like to come across that I don't know anything, and reading it might give me information. But let's see how this one goes. The other thing that I wanted to mention, while I was looking at the thumbnail, I was like, okay, where did I stop last time in terms of the human design? And I found at the end of it, I was hoping that the last 5 minutes would show me exactly where I am on my notes. For some reason, I haven't put a little note on my notes. So I'm going to go through, there won't be repetition from part one, but I'm hoping that I don't miss anything, so I don't bore you. But do check with part one, and if you've seen it, you might want to check it again so that you overlap into this one. What I noticed is that I don't often wear yellow nail varnish. Very rarely. Like, you know, I think the Sinead O'Connor might be coming up to 2 months or 6 weeks done. It'll show 1 month, but because it's like, if it's not done in within a week or 2 weeks, and it'll be month, yeah, that it shows in like a month, and then until you reach 2 months, it'll show 2 months. So it's beyond 1 month. And I was wearing yellow, and I thought, that's interesting. That's really interesting. And obviously that to be brought to my attention as well. So I wonder if yellow had a significance to her. I need to tune into that. But I really want to filter out and channel what I've been wanting to channel and discuss and share with you. So we did know that there's high level of psychic awareness, and like I said, the music was part of her expression, part of getting her voice out. We know that the Catholic Church at the time were a powerful institute and even owned 1/4 of the land in Europe, you know, and had authority over a lot of the kings in Europe as well. And one thing with Sinead was there was not only in the past life and then being brought, there was generational shame, okay? And I think, was she born in 66? What was her date of birth? Yeah, 66. So she's a Sag, and she died at 56. As I say, she died at 56. That really hits my heart for a moment. South node in Scorpio, conjunct Neptune. So the deception and manipulation that she would have gone through, but also that could be something that I feel in the young, vulnerable Sinead, that she might have tried while she was trying to gain love. And I think that's why maybe she married or got with multiple partners, because she wouldn't know what true love is from what she's been through. In one of the further parts, I actually want to see, because I think I think channels might have said, you know, she sat there and she's got her son and her mum and they reconciled. But you don't always reconcile. You might do if your mother comes and says, I've been on this journey and I feel really bad and stuff like that. But it doesn't mean that without the mother doing that, that you're ready to forgive because you're on that healing journey. There has to be, you have to see that that person's been on the healing journey and coming forward to also say there was no excuse for it. Or it's just kind of like, I'm forgiving, but I'm not really connecting. It's like, I think JonBenet Ramsey, I'm not sure she's very close to her mother in the afterlife. Or if it's just a case of, I need to just forgive, but I'm not necessarily present in where or sticking with my mother in the afterlife. So it's not always the case. That's another thing, and I will be channeling into that because I have a feeling that, and I don't know if anyone's actually tried to channel Sinead. I presume they have, but if they're saying that she sat with her mother and her son, yes. Her mum is something which I would connect to because I'm not really sure. And I feel a deep sense of sadness now taking over me. So I definitely think she's coming through. She's got a profound awareness about her. And, you know, I think we did discuss that about her past life and her being a healer and also quite passionately, extremely passionate and fierce. If you're hearing some drilling, I hope it's not coming through, but sometimes I have to just get on with the recording. So generational shame, unspoken rules, and that passed down through families. And, you know, the thing with Sinead that everyone's not understanding is there's passed down rules that you have to follow from society to be, and I discussed in part 1 how she had been impregnated by someone and she basically saved his reputation. Apparently she had a choice and she didn't have a choice. It was something because, oh, you can't do that to so-and-so's son because it will ruin their family's reputation. So she was put away. It wasn't a choice, you know, it was her to suppress. And at the same time, she thought he'd always come and get her when they were stable, and then the baby was taken from her. So there's these unspoken rules, and then there's rules that you need to abide from. It's like, do you know how everything's kind of undercovered? Like the truth of stuff is undercovered, and that was not sitting well with her. Imagine being, you know, your mom and dad. There's a society that says you get married, there's a mom and dad, they're loving, dad goes out to work and mom's in the home nurturing and stuff like that, and there's this perfect image of a family, and then under it is Sinead, who's just because her mother would be in a bad mood, would be stripped naked, laid on the floor and beaten, or locked in her room for days. And her mum would disappear. So in her life, you know, she's needed to learn to trust the material world, gain stability and patience through the material world, when in fact as a young child all that caused her was trauma and instability. And if you look at her north and south nodes, that's where I say her north node is that stability, but then her south node has taken so much of her, and there's this unspoken rules. And what she was trying to say is, you've got these unspoken rules, but in fact underneath it you're doing different than what you're vocalizing. Sagittarius is a prophecy. Sagittarius is about truth. You try, who knows the Sagittarius? Say it in the comments. They can't. They need to speak truth, you know. And there's something about, you don't know the rules or unspoken rules exist until you cross them. and then you're shamed. And so she's like, do you know, when there should be people that are like, okay, what you went through, I'm coming to help you, because what you went through is unacceptable. It's your mother, it's whoever, it's an elder, whatever, it's unacceptable. And that should be a rule, that's a rule that's unspoken of. And then when you do speak of it, you're shamed. And that's what would happen to her. And she was well beyond her time to voice what she wanted to say. If you take what she did with the Pope or etc., no one would give an F right now, because all that's been brought up. Now, she started a lot of that, but it took years for it to develop. Like COVID brought a lot of stuff up, and we see the world in a lot of different ways. We also, if we get told by our government something, we're more like, or our doctor or our police officer, so some of us are like, okay, can you show me ID before you do that? Before it's like, oh my God, okay. You know, so we're learning to voice and express. And that was something that, you know, if you look at it, we're breaking through that fear barrier. That was very much in their time, you know, and shame about body, shame about social status, shame about your finances, your debt, sexuality, earnings, failed relationships, shame about not fitting in. And that can all come from the family. The family will shame you if you're not looking or fitting in, of how they see how you should be as a girl or a boy, and you shouldn't be gay, or you should be gay, or you know what I mean, or you should have long hair, or you shouldn't. But okay, what about you as a mother or a father? Where are you when you're locking me out or locking me in or disappearing for days, and I'm not getting any love? The one time I got love was a school time. She was really ill, or she was on her way home and something happened where she had an injury. And at that time, her mum was loving and caring, and I don't know if it's bathing the wound or caring for her. That's the one time she felt loved. And she actually, do you know how someone's not felt loved? And you know, when, even as an adult, you know, when you've been, for example, you've been on a very difficult chapter of your life, maybe you've gone through it alone, and then you see, let's say your brother or your sister, or you get with a partner and you've not been with a partner for a very long time, or dating, or you see your mother, your brother and father, and I'm taking adult because children are most vulnerable, but even as adults, and suddenly you get hugged. You just kind of melt and you can break down because you've had to be really, really strong. And I feel like that's how she felt, like she just melted, and she would have done anything for that to be, although she was really, really not well or injured. And I need to tap into this a bit more because I'm not sure what I'm getting here. She wanted to keep that moment, that every minute she wanted to relive it and relive it and relive it, because it's one time where she felt her mum was present and actually loving towards her, and she'd never felt that. And shame of a child that gets internalized with self-worth, like she's not good enough, that is also part of some of this generational shame. Now, with her 12th house being potent, you know, I mentioned about this extremely psychic, and I think she might have even astro traveled sometimes. And that's where I would say she also connected to certain singers. I would have said Elvis was at her time. Bob Dylan. And so if she didn't write the song, there's certain singers that she'd connect with, and she'd be like, I'm channeling into my subconscious, I am connecting with their energy beyond the word, beyond the song. And she goes into this different realm of escaping what she's currently in. and it was kind of free, and she just had the songs inside of her that she had to come out, even the ones that she'd written, and ones she's written that she hasn't sung as well, that she felt helped her connect with her soul, helped her sort of really, and connection with her soul also meant she felt at home. And there's also with her 12th house a connection to her ancestors. One of the things she would have struggled with was her shadow aspects. And don't forget, as someone as a child that's been abused for just horrific ways, your shadow aspects are difficult to embrace because you've already been through a lot of trauma and pain, and you've got these shadow aspects that need healing, and you kind of like, when does this end? I can't tap into more than what it is. And I think that's where she would, if she met someone and she was still young, she'd be like, she'd really want to hang out with them or be with them. She wanted a sense of company, but a sense of love, like, you know, not to get with someone for sex, no, for love, to be loved, to feel that hug, as well as being cared for, feeling safe, feeling that stability of the 3D world, also connected in that way. And I think this is where she would have, I think she's someone who, there was times where people could have probably taken a lot of advantage from her in her teens, in terms of also like maybe elder men or whatever hitting on her, that could have taken advantage of her, or her vulnerability of wanting to be with them, even if it's just to hang out for, I'm getting to play the guitar, but it's they could have taken advantage of her, but they didn't. So there was a lot of people, I think, like that, where she realized, they said to her, no, I can't date you, but you know, I'm here for you, let's hang out and play on the guitar or whatever. I'm just giving you simple examples, and the guitar just came through very strong. So there's times where I think people could have taken advantage of her at her will as well, but they know that she was vulnerable, and she didn't know necessarily that this doesn't mean that it's true love. But in that moment she would have felt love, because she didn't know what love was. And she needs to let go of attachments and the fear of exposure and the lack of faith in life, inherent order of needing to control or manipulate the situation. So even like when she wanted love, she might have, you know, manipulated in terms of being a female, young or whatever, but not in a bad manipulation, if you know what I mean. It's like, I really need love, and so I'm gonna play the guitar but look up at him and just try, and not in a easy, I'm too easy kind of way, do you know what I mean? It's kind of like trying to draw the person in, kind of manipulate it to get the love that she felt would be then her stability in life. I hope this is coming through. And so we know that she was actually living with her, she was from quite a well-to-do family. I think her father an engineer, and then did he become a barrister or something like that? And she was actually born Bernadette, okay? And it's actually a French name for a nun in the 1800s. And she was, I think she was either she was a nun that was helping a doctor, and there's something about the Virgin Mary. I don't know what, I'm going to have to look this up, but that's Bernadette, and it was named after that, which again, if you think about it, there's history here, isn't there? There's a karmic sort of, it's all falling into place with the astrology and what I was saying. Now in 1975, she left her mother and or was given custody of the kids, her mother. Yeah, 1975, they left the mother because the custody of the kids must have gone to the father. But it was, she got one brother and 3 stepsisters. It was Sinead and John, who I think was the one who's closest to her in age. Like 14 months, less than 24 months. They missed the mum, strangely. And so they only stayed 6 months, and between 9 and 13, she was again at her mum's, and then to her father's. And then I think around the 13, 14, until she was about 15, she was put in this troubled school for girls, which I discussed in part 1. Now, if you think about that, that would have also escalated in her sort of, I felt like she was quite curious, so she would also go into the area maybe when the nuns were, or, you know, because there was also women there of different sorts. It wasn't just girls. It was next to, in part 1 I mentioned it. So I think she'd go in curious to see what else is there, but obviously it really took a beating to her self-worth. And I think then not long after, her mother dies at the age of late teens, maybe 19 or something. And there's something about leaving London at this point in time, or left to London. And she was due her album when she was 20 years old, but she was actually pregnant. Like, the first child was around 20, was it, or 21? There's definitely deep spiritual connections here with her, and there's something about Elvis that I need to tap into. What I want to do now, though, is I want to insert a clip from the Dr. Phil show where she was interviewed on it, and it's probably gonna, I think you might have seen it, but if you haven't seen it, you're probably gonna see what I was sort of maybe channeling. I can't quite remember what it says, because I know that when I first wanted to do part 1 of Sinead, I had seen it, but you know that I can't remember with all the channelings and the tarot readings and the clients exactly, but I know she described how horrific her mother had treated her. And obviously her father wasn't necessarily the father that he should have been either. I do get something about her stepmom as well. Probably just, you know, she's not my kid, so I'm not really bothered, kind of thing. Although she might have said that she shows appreciation to her stepmom, but that might just be because her stepmom really didn't give a toss, so she didn't beat her up every day or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I could be dead, she didn't care, but she wasn't inflicting more pain on me, although it was painful to know that I was like nothing to my stepmom, and my father knew. So let's insert this clip from Dr. Phil's show, and let's come back, because I think there was also element of her thinking that her mum was possessed. And I do think for her mum to do that, her mum must have had energy attachments. And so I don't know if I'm getting that come through as a reminder, because this might be in the clip or whatever, but I do think that she felt her mum was possessed from, which means that she knows that her mum was doing real evil stuff. Like, it wasn't normal for a mother to be that way, which in a sense can probably give you a bit of reassurance. Like, you wouldn't think someone's possessed unless it's like beyond what you understand as a norm or what you see other children. I think that her mother also had often told her, you know, that Sinead should not be born, or that she didn't want a girl, or she didn't want girls. And there's something about she didn't, she wanted a boy. And so I think Sinead shared this out there, and so this might not be particular channeling, but she'd shave her head, and she'd beat her up daily. And like I said, take her clothes off and beat her up, and abuse her. And she'd had to put her arms at basically, she wanted to remove as much as she could the identity of her being a girl. And I mean that in every way. Being a girl, being female, but also being a girl as in still not have had S contact or engagement. So cruel. Complete absence of emotional empathy. Well, then she'd also see her mum let me insert the clip before I forget, and then let me get back to this.
To my mom.
Sinead, are you mentally ill?
I am fed up of being defined as, you know, the crazy person, the child abuse survivor.
Nothing compares to you.
When you were 21, you had the #1 song in the world.
But I also felt like an imposter.
Why? When you tore the Pope's picture up on Saturday Night Live, whose picture were you tearing up? Have you ever told anybody that's why you keep your hair cut short?
I'm changing my name. Sinead O'Connor's gone. That person's gone.
Will you do an experiment with me?
Is it gonna make me cry? All the flowers that you planted, Mama, in the backyard.
What do you love about your mother?
I love about my mother, that she's dead. All died when you went away.
You say she abused you physically and sexually. Tell me what happened.
Where do I start?
At the beginning.
I know that living with your baby was sometimes hard. She ran a torture chamber. She was a person who took delight in hurting you. Nothing compares. I became very suicidal. I was a basket case. Nothing compares to you.
You tried to kill yourself 8 times in 1 year.
She was not well. She was really very, very, very not well. I would say she was possessed, although I'm not sure I believe in such things. Mm-hmm. So either she was just a sadist and a pedophile, or she was possessed by the devil.
Well, let me work backwards here. When you were 8, your parents divorced after a really troubled relationship. And
well, there was no divorce in Ireland. They separated. And then what happened was, when the day my father left, we were very upset. My father had built us a shed in the garden, a hut to play in. My mother was so angry at us for being upset that he left that she said, right, if you love him that much, you can live in the shed. So from the day he left, we were living in the garden for months.
Well, when you mean garden, you mean the yard?
The backyard.
The backyard?
Yeah. It would not be fair for me to discuss anything that she did to my siblings, so I have to only discuss what she did to me. Okay. But she ran a torture chamber. It was a torture chamber. She was a person who took delight, would smile in hurting you.
What did she do?
Where do I start?
At the beginning.
My earliest memory, she's telling me that I shouldn't have been born. She didn't want me. She didn't want girls. She wants me to be a boy. She dresses me like a boy. She chops my hair off. Whenever she beats me, which is daily, I'm naked. She makes me take my clothes off. I have to lie on the floor. I have to open my arms and legs. I have to let her attack my abdomen. She wants to burst my womb. She wants to destroy my reproductive. She wants to stop me being a female.
She did this to you for how long a period of time?
From 0 to 13. Thing? So she basically, it would be sweeping brushes, she'd be stamping on me with her feet. The phone would ring in the middle of it and she'd be like, oh, hi, how are you? Her foot would be on my naked on the floor. I'm 3, 4, 5 years of age. Kindergarten, I win the prize for curling up in the smallest ball. I remember being about 5 or so, we were meant to go somewhere for the weekend. She made me put on a dress that used to belong to my sister and the button was missing. She beats the out of me because the button is missing off the dress, takes the dress, takes the light bulb out of my room, locks me in my room, and then everybody leaves for the weekend. She's the type of person, she'd make you get every Bible in the house and every hockey stick. We used to be terrified. The last day of school in the summer was the most unhappy day of our lives. All the other kids would be delighted. We'd be hiding the hockey sticks and the tennis racks and crying because we're stuck with her for the summer. She would invent reasons to beat you up. Like she'd say the lampshade is crooked. My job was to clean the house. So if I left the lampshade a bit crooked after I dusted it, she'd beat the out of me. Daily this went on. The only thing you'd be sure of every day is you're going to get the kicked out of you when you hear the steps of her waking up. Literally me and my brother used to pee our pants.
How long did this go on?
Till I was 13, I ran away. She used to make me say over and over, I'm nothing, while she was beating me.
I am nothing?
I'm nothing. I was a very small child. After a while you begin to believe it. In fact, you are nothing.
For 38 years, these wounds have been festering within you, and you've never had trauma treatment for this until right now.
This was my treatment.
And ask you to comment on it.
I just can't understand how a person can be left so alone, and I want everyone to see what it's like. It's why I'm making this video. All the people who are supposed to be loving you and taking care of you are treating you like
Who are the people that won't take care of you? Are you talking about your family?
Yeah, now obviously I want to be really clever because I love my family and I don't blame them. It's not easy for families of mentally ill people. We can be difficult. What happened was I had been writing to my family, begging letters, and angry letters and raging, and I don't want to make out like I'm a victim here. I give it as good as I get. I was an ass to my family. I thought it would be better, maybe my family might, if they saw how I'm feeling, they would relate to it.
You don't even care.
I hoped in my kidney stone madness that my family would see it and go, oh my God, we didn't realise it's that bad, we'll go get her.
Did they watch?
No.
How do you know?
One of them told me, yeah. I rang one of the fathers of my children, who happened to be 5 miles away from me in New York at the time, and had my 10-year-old child and didn't bring him to see me.
Are you mentally ill?
I don't believe I am, no. Unless you say that complex post-traumatic stress disorder is a mental illness. I've had a psychiatrist, one psychiatrist told me I'm the sanest person he's ever met, which of course everyone laughs at when I say that. Musicians are always a little on the edge. We're somewhere out there. Also, I'm a child abuse survivor, very severe child abuse survivor, so I'm a little out there. I'm unusual, irregular, eccentric. What kicked all of this off really was that I had a hysterectomy, a radical hysterectomy in Ireland 2 years ago, and I lost my mind after that. And that's, I think, what happened with my family, and we have to give my family credit, and they're not here to speak for themselves, so I don't want to disrespect them, but the fact is, they didn't know who the hell I was. I was told to leave the hospital 2 days after the surgery with Tylenol and no hormone replacement, and no guidance as to what might happen to me. I was flung into surgical menopause, so hormones were everywhere. I became very suicidal. I was a basket case. So yeah, I would say that after the hysterectomy, I was mental.
When we talked on the phone, you told me that you tried to kill yourself 8 times.
I know, I counted up the times in my life that I've tried to.
In 1 year. Why?
Because they left me. They left me and they wouldn't let me see my child. His father, who never bothered with the child, snuck him into foster care behind my back while I was in hospital trying to recover from being bonkers.
And so off he goes into foster
my
care.
My family, they all left the child there for 6 months. Of course, I lost the plot, raging, angry. And anger was part of the suicidal feeling, and also was the grief and unfairness, and I can't get hurt unless I'm dead in front of them, blah, 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 you know. But that's what it was really about. That's what made me lose my absolute mind, was that they kept me from my most vulnerable child. Also, in some of my abuse as a child, my mother quite regularly was attempting to destroy my reproductive system.
It's again about the unspoken rules and the unspoken image that would be put out in society, where I'm just going back to what I was going to say before I inserted that clip for you to see. Her mum would answer the phone like nothing happened, which we see until now, by the way, in a lot of cultures, and even in the Western culture. You know, there might be a beating going on, and then it's like, "Hey, Sally, how are you doing?" It's like, weren't you just going off and I'm sat there in the corner being beaten up? Should make her dress up like a male at times. And she talks about like when she was 5 years old and she put on her sister's dress, and then there was a button missing in her sister's dress, so her mum beat the crap out of her, basically. Although it wasn't her that caused the sister's dress to lose its button, so it wasn't like she put it on and the button pop or something, it was already missing. She'd lock her in the room and she'd leave for days. That included everyone left for days for the weekend. Obviously they would do the housework, and if this is her and John as well, if like a lampshade was not straight, she would get beaten up for it. And I'm going to actually pull some cards to read on the mother. I'm just going to put a star so that I know that that's what I want to do. Her and John would often pee their pants. In fear. When they hear the mother's woken up. And it's kind of like, what are we going to face today? And most of the time it wasn't like, is she going to be okay in terms of her mood? but how bad would her mood be? It wasn't like, oh, today she's going to take us to the park and she's going to be loving, or she's going to be in a bad mood, so she's going to be like, just F off, do what you want. No, it was like, how bad is it going to be today? How bad is the beating? Or is there a miraculous rare day where we're just going to be left alone? And lonely as it is, but not put through trauma or beatings. And there was also emotional abuse in terms of, actually, now we call them affirmations, but imagine being told affirmations work like we're told, and then your mother or someone tells you, repeat this constantly, and makes you repeat it for several times in a day, any day. And it's basically saying that you're nothing. And you need to believe it, and should repeatedly tell her that. And, you know, with her mother also trying to take her girlhood from her, she also had other people in several stages, people that would come in and essay her. Disclaimer, this is for entertainment purposes only. Please use your own discernment and fact finding. And that would be, the prime years of that was between 7 and 12 years old. I feel like she kept a bit of a journal about the abuse. And one thing I noticed with her, with Sinead, is that she always respected, she always told it from her side. She said, I can only speak for me. And she never spoke for her siblings. She respected their boundaries in terms of what their experience would be, but she was there. She was there. And again, I don't know if she had one elder sister, her, and then John, and the rest were stepsisters. And so there's a respect of not speaking on their behalf, although she knew what was happening. And so it was very likely that a lot of what was happening or happened to Sinead was done to the others as well. Or maybe, I don't want to say less to John, but if the fact was that she didn't want Sinead as a female and she wanted a son, and you should have been a son, it's likely that that was additional abuse that Sinead would get, in terms of also trying to steal her being a young girl. And again, going back to the need of stability and safety, her father never gave that. Her father was absent, and there was a clear lack of safe, stable, controlled environment in her life. And maybe it was easier around the 20s and when she got pregnant, but then again, it was a bit turbulent with her relationships. You know, that would always be there, but she was probably not in the abuse of her mother when her mother passed away. And I dare say there was a sense of a relief when her mother passed away. Naturally, we will grieve a little bit, but I don't think I think there was a relief there. her mother was definitely a narcissist, and so elements of that could have been passed on to Sinead, but I think she tried to deal with things in the best she could given the amount of abuse she faced. And I think, to be honest, she was more of an empath as opposed to a narcissist, and was dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder and depression most of her life, and most people would. I mean, I think there's some recognition there that there's people that can't even face half of what she's probably been through, and they're already in, you know, sort of mental hospital or institutions, are really, really struggling. And she died at 56, so she didn't do any of this to her children, and a lot of people, what they've been through, they pass down and do it to their children because they have the hate, the resentment, the trauma within them. And not only do they not know how to love properly, but she knew what was right from wrong, but you don't operate from a clear, aligned space. Yet she never did that to any of her children from what we're aware of. Obviously, there was a pass down of the mental health and struggle with her youngest son. And I think there's something about that actually that I want to read on, like, which I'm making a note. How can he be in a locked up mental hospital and then he escaped and committed suicide? And I think there's something there about that doesn't make sense. And I think she had a step back at that stage, and maybe she might have gone into hospital in terms of the mental health at that stage. Sinead as well. Was her son around 17 or 19? This is part 2, and what I'm going to do for part 3 is actually go through a bit more channeling, read the son, read on the mum, and Sinead. But I do want to say something else. So there's a subscriber who I truly appreciate has suggested that maybe I channel or tap into one of the Ripper's victims, and I try not to tap into very dark energy, but I think the victims need a voice, and their dark energy was from energy attachments. That's what I'm getting. I have no clue their names or anything, and I'm just going to select one of, I think there was 5 or 6 that were known, but there was a lot more, okay? And so I'm just going to tap into that. Now, as I was starting to try to connect to having that at the forefront, Sinead would come through, and she was like, this is exactly what I was picking up in terms of story. This is exactly what I, you know, was trying to also voice, the unspoken rules, the unspoken image that beneath it was corrupted and allowed people to actually be in a no escape way. Like, you can't escape, you cannot get out of being shamed because of whatever you do, especially females at that time. And she was like, this was something that I really wanted to put a voice to, that a lot of what would be voiced was not the full story. Because, for example, when I connect to, if I'm going to connect to the victim, I think one of the things is that there was no way out. There was no way, whatever I did, it was kind of like I was wrong. And that's because of what society's belief was. And as I connect, Sinead's always like, this is what I mean. This is what I mean. And that would drive her mad. Like, the lack of truth and honesty and clarity of how, I want to say corrupt, but it's not only that, deceiving and not traumatic only, but what is it, abusive, but there's another word, there's a larger element of it being a whole cycle, a whole a whole way of living that was just toxic, especially to the divine feminine. And that's something that she really saw, struggled, not only experienced, and she really wanted to bring light to that because she could not handle the injustice, again, Sagittarius energy, of what was happening. And if she's an empath, she would have been taking that on board, but not only just as a collective, she was a victim. Think about it. You're born to your parents. These are the people that are supposed to, you look to for safety. I mean, even when we're older, we go visit our mom or our dad, even if there's kind of an energy gap, you know, maybe your mom doesn't always call you and she's not as, you know, sometimes you see your mom in a certain way when you're younger, but then when you're older, you're like, actually, you wasn't as present as I thought you was present. Or you don't ask, you like, I could go 2 weeks and you've got no idea what's happening, but then you know I'm going through a tough time. And even as an adult, that hurts. And so can you imagine as a young child that? And that's why I think connecting with to see about the afterlife, because I am sure that a lot of people would say, oh, they're sat together, she's always with her son and mum now, but I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. So that's the other thing that I wanted to say as I'm trying to tap into. And unless I take a couple of days to really connect to the victim, it might just be one channeling, but I think I'm going to take you on that journey and see what we get through, because like I said, I'm not looking into it. I'm keeping it as it is. Just minimal, you know, making sure that maybe I select a name to connect to a name, or I look at a picture and try and understand, because I think there will be a lot of also different stories out there. And so, yeah, Sinead was coming through, was like, this is one of the things that I really was trying to voice, and there was no one else voicing at the time. And I don't think we were ready for it. As a society, I don't think we were ready for it. We was ahead of our time. And the other thing that I really get stronger with Sinead is she's like, so much of the mental torture she'd gone through was not worth it. She's not saying she's self-inflicted. She recognizes that it was done to her, but she's like, she really wishes that she could have not learned how to dissociate with the mental torture. That, okay, this has happened, but how can I put this? Just be freed from it, but still live. Like, acknowledge the mental torture, but free yourself from it, because really, what was it doing on a daily basis? Where did it get her? Where did it hold her back? Did it bring her forward by always carrying that mental torture that, you know, I can't be happy, or the mental torture of things? It was like, there was, if I could put it as a general message, there's no need for the mental torture. If you're going through mental torture right now, it's difficult to get out of that headspace to free yourself, but there isn't. We put ourselves through so much mental torture and we can't see clearly that this is mental torture that we really need to try and release. It's hard, I can't explain this. So it's hard to release it, the mental torture, because I know that we get trapped in it, but it's actually there, it's there, but the torture is too much of a torture that it makes us want to escape life or not be present in life. When in fact, whether we try to heal it and let it go in some way, or just acknowledge you're there, but I'm not allowing you to, I'm going to heal you, I'm going to feel you, but I'm not going to allow you to mentally torture me every day. We don't gain anything, or it's not that we're hiding ourselves or we're not healing ourselves by doing that. We're actually freeing ourselves. So much of the mental torture is not needed. And if she could have known how to not have that mental torture, and she knows that it's probably impossible from what she was given from her life, in her early life especially, and then seeking the love and stability, and then her son's death, etc. That if she could have tried to control it, like if someone else hasn't been through that much, if you can try to control it to free yourself a little bit, because there's no need, it adds nothing, it actually just kills you and keeps you confined and jailed. And she's learnt this by being freed, like she feels so free, there's no mental torture. But then when she looks back, why was I putting myself through, why was there so much mental torture? How can I learn to let it go? And I think that's the thing, is it's difficult to let it go, to learn to let it go, and we often can't let it go. But if we can, we're actually freed in the 3D life, at least for, like, you know, you're not going to always be free of mental torture, but you're going to be maybe less, if you're suicidal, less on that. And please seek help. Please seek help from a doctor, a psychologist, the helplines. But that's what I'm feeling, like she was suddenly freed of the mental torture, and it was kind of like, well, why was I carrying that? I've been through so much, like, and she's one of the extreme, isn't she? But like for us on a daily basis, some of us have been through maybe a couple of that for years. Why are we allowing the mind to continually bring it up as something that we don't deserve? Like sometimes when you go through mental torture, for example, you might see something and you're like, you want to smile, but then you realize actually, like you look at something like, oh, it made me smile, but then you feel guilty to smile because you're like, actually, I'm not that happy, or someone's just passed away, how can I smile? You actually need to take things a lot lighter, and don't wait for the hereafter to free yourself of that. I feel that that is a very strong message coming through. And I knew what I wanted to say from the beginning, but there's certain words that when I continue to say, how can I say it, how can I say it, I'm channeling divine words that Sinead might want to bring through. But like that is one big strong message, that she was freed of the mental torture, but she also realized that maybe my son was around me in the 3D and I was going to end up being with him, so why can't I enjoy this moment? What happened to me in terms of my mom, I recognize it, but it wasn't my fault. And for her, obviously, it was constant mental torture. My throat is killing me. My throat is killing me and it's swelling up and blocking. It's constant mental torture. To try to alleviate pain and disconnect from mental torture when it's trying to become what's the word I want? It's got to be in it. It's got to be in it. I can see the word, but I can't say it. It's similar to exaggerated, but it's not the right word. And this is the word I've been trying to get. I think some of you are going to know what I mean. So I hope you enjoyed part 2. Part 3, we're going to read on some of the energies, see what else we get through. And please, if you need any help, then do seek help. I don't know if Sinead ever had some energy healing or clearing. That also helps you, by the way. I do that. I'm not just trying to put a sales pitch, but I do that. It does help you. But not if you're really suffering mentally. You need to get that help as well. The clearing helps you release and just sort of try and align your mind, body and soul. You know what energy healing is anyway. So I hope you enjoyed this session. If you did, please do like, subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you did, because I had one lovely person who did. Because I actually did the work on the astrology and the human design, and I found it really, really interesting to see how it just falls into, doesn't it? Let me know if you enjoyed this, and stay blessed, everyone. Stay blessed, and take care of yourselves and have a lovely day wherever you are in this big world, yet such a small world. Bye for now.